is safe. Derek Jeter ends his final game with a walk-off single.
And like the Yankee rotation come July, we are finally whole again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Dog Days of Baseball podcast. It is myself, the voice of a generation, Pete Rosado, alongside the self-made man, the Grizz himself, and finally joining us for the first time due to everything life has thrown at him, but still here with us, the Territorian, the one and only, our third man, Alphonse Stevens. Don't worry, we don't got to worry about Bobby Heenan ruining the surprise on the third man on this one.
I will be the Keith to your Gary and Ron.
There we go, gentlemen. Episode 5, we got a lot to talk about, but before we get there, how was your last 2 weeks, gentlemen?
As a baseball fan or in general?
Hold on.
I mean, wherever you want to go with it.
I don't have any Mets apparel on for obvious reasons, so that should sum it up. But we'll get into that later.
Grizz, how we doing? How's that heat down south? Heat so bad it conked out his audio. But while we wait for Grizz to get back online, gentlemen, I don't know if you heard, but in Major League Baseball,
Clap for your world-famous 5-time champs and feel the power! It's a new day. Yes, it is.
Why am I getting a New Day shit?
it is
What?
most
What the hell's going on here?
definitely
I have no
a
idea.
brand new day in Major League Baseball as our top topic of the week. The MLB record books have experienced a massive shakeup as Major League Baseball finally recognizing statistics from the Negro Leagues, adding them to players that were already part of Major League Baseball record history, and adjusting a lot of things. We have a brand new slugging leader, a brand new all-time hits leader.
OPS leader.
Yeah, OPS leader. We have brand new almost everything. Unfortunately, Willie Mays did not get any more home runs on his prodigious 660.
10 hits, though.
Did get 10 hits. As you can see, I'm wearing my New York Cubans jersey in full Negro League apparel. Alphonse, at first you want to celebrate the fact that the Negro League's finally being recognized, the statistics finally being recognized by Major League Baseball. But of course, you heard that very vocal minority talking about how this is now changing everything that has been going on for decades with baseball and the records. Chat me up. If you're, Barry Bonds, if you're, Ty Cobb or the family of Ty Cobb, and you've been the all-time hits leader, the all-time, OPS leader, slugging leader, all that, and now you're not. What's the mindset there?
Well, I don't know if you saw, Pete. Ty Cobb's family actually put out a statement and said that they welcome the inclusion of Negro League statistics in the record, in the official record. But I've heard takes from all over the place. I've heard people saying, well, the Negro Leaguers did not compete in the major league, so they shouldn't be added to the record. Some people say that the Negro Leagues, which this is a statement that I heavily disagree with, that the Negro Leagues were a lesser competition than the major leagues, which is definitely not true, because if you had to face Satchel Paige in his prime every day, you probably wouldn't do well. On top of that, I feel like if you're a detractor to the Negro Leagues being added to the official record and the statistics, then that shows your true colors as a human being, no pun intended. A lot of people have to remember baseball, when baseball first became a thing in the late 1800s, the game was steeped in racism for decades. That there is a reason why African Americans could not play in the major leagues because it was segregated. More so, not even just African Americans, because if you look at a lot of the rosters, Hispanics too played in the Negro Leagues. A lot of Dominicans, a lot of Cubans.
Minnie Minioso.
Yes, Minnie Minoso, who's in the Hall of Fame. So you can't exclude those players, because to say that the Negro Leagues is a step down in competition is foolish, because look how many Hall of Famers the Negro Leagues have produced, from Minnie Minoso, Jackie Robinson, Larry Doby, Satchel Paige, Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, all started in Negro Leagues. Roy Campanella, just to name a few.
In fact, talking about Satchel Paige really quickly, Satchel Paige made his Major League Baseball debut, not his baseball debut, but his Major League Baseball debut in 1948. He was already 42 years old.
Oldest rookie in history.
To this day, it's still the oldest rookie in American or National League history. And he pitched in the major leagues for another 17 years, retired when he was 59 years old. In fact, became the first player ever that played in the Negro Leagues to pitch in the World Series, playing with the
Cleveland, well, back then.
Cleveland, right. But when you look at it, still dominant.
Don't forget, he won a ring that year that he came up. He and Larry Doby both were in the Negro Leagues, and they won that ring. Now, I do have a bit of skepticism. Now, before I continue, I just want to say, yes, Negro League statistics should count. However, I'm scratching my head at the political motivations of this whole thing. Reason being, everybody knows Rob Manfred has been a doofus in the office of commissioner from the very moment he took over for Doug Taylor. Amongst other things, he called the World Series trophy a piece of tin. He publicly stated that he believes the sport that he's the commissioner of is boring. He was not on the side of the players or the fans during the COVID season negotiations or the 2021 season lockout. He's made rule changes that nobody likes. He's commissioned these horrible uniforms this season. But this is the first thing that he's done well. But a lot of people don't realize his contract as commissioner is coming up. So is Manfred doing this to pander? That's number one. Number two, in his cabinet of people, he has Joe Torre, but amongst others, he has Ken Griffey Jr., who is spearheading the project to get inner city kids to play baseball again and spike the popularity of the sport up. So is the inclusion of the Negro Leagues to tell these kids, hey, look at all these great players that came from where you come from. They look like you. You can achieve this too. So is this all some type of ploy to get African Americans and minorities interested back into the sport? Because you look around the majors, some teams don't even have not one African American guy on the roster. So it could be that. So I'm just curious. My other issue is how accurate are the statistics, because there's no secret. Now, they said they researched this for 3 years, but when I hear that box scores were incomplete, there's no record of certain games. For example, there's a famous game where Josh Gibson, who's now the all-time average and OPS leader, hit 4 home runs in a game, but it's all through word-of-mouth accounts. They cannot find a single video clip, audio clip, or a photograph from where that game came. And that brings another point. A lot of people, myself included, and they even say this in MLB The Show this year, that the Negro Leagues is more mythical because, again, a lot of stuff about the Negro Leagues is through word of mouth, witness accounts. But it's not in the box score. It's not in print. When I read that they had to go to old newspaper clippings to find out, oh, this guy had an RBI. This guy had 3 hits in a game. This guy hit a home run. That doesn't give me much faith of the accuracy of these statistics. So it's a bit of concern, but I do believe that they should count. Another thing nobody's talking about, now we have women in the official history book too, as the Negro Leagues had 4 women play in their ranks. So that's the only thing. I feel like not enough people are talking about that, because that's significant, because there are no women in Major League Baseball outside of coaches or GMs or team execs. So, but no, I believe that this is a good thing for the sport. I do believe that it's a good thing for people of color because, you know, you go in the inner city, you want to play basketball, there's courts all over the place. You just need a ball. You want to go play football, you can play touch football. All you need is a football. Baseball, you need bats, gloves. You got to find a field. The field has to be cared for. So baseball is the more expensive sport to start up in a community for kids. But I'm all for it if it helps the game, but I understand both sides of the argument.
Okay. Sorry for the interruption. I don't know where the New Day thing came from. I have no clue.
It's a new day in Major League Baseball.
Okay, so that was you. Okay, I thought it was me when I have the technical.
No. It's
okay.
A new day in the record books of Major League Baseball.
Okay, so here's my thing, right? And I agree with Alphonse on this much. Why is it now being done? And that I am a big skeptic on because, like you said, you have the commissioner of the MLB this is last year's contracts coming up. You know, we all expect this man to be done. But now it's like you're campaigning for another, few years, maybe? Why is it now being done? Why is it now being done in 2024 where this should have been integrated years ago? Probably you could argue it should have been integrated when the players started coming over. I mean, it probably wouldn't have happened right away, but it probably, I would assume probably about, I'd say between the 70s and the 90s for sure, these records should have been integrated for sure. So now we're talking what? Over 90 years later, if my math is wrong, which I think it is.
Yeah.
But
not to cut you off, but the last Negro League season officially recorded, I believe, was 1958.
So that just proves our point even further. Why did it take this long? Why did it take this long for this to happen? So now I'm definitely okay with the Negro Leagues, their stats and everything being incorporated into this, because now that was the whole thing for baseball, right? To make one league, to have everyone join in on this one league, on this one game that we love, on this one game that is brought together. One thing I brought up to my dad, especially back then, there were more guys in the Negro Leagues that were way better than guys in the majors. And you named a few already, Josh Gibson being one of them, Hank Aaron being another one. So, you know, these records should have been counted, in my personal opinion. Now, I guess the new question is, can these records be broken?
In today's baseball, if you asking somebody to have a lifetime 373 average, that's
you're asking a lot.
The rate these guys strike out, that's wishful thinking.
You're asking
You've got, like you said, Josh Gibson's slugging percentage now becomes the record at 974. It used to be Barry Bonds' record, and his slugging percentage was 863. So you're talking about 111 points better than Barry Bonds, who, when you think Barry Bonds, you literally just think slugger. Bonds has previously had the OPS record, on base plus slugging, of 1.421, and that was in the 2004 season. That's now third best, behind not one but two records for Josh Gibson. He holds the record first and second place at 1.474 and 1.435. You did have some people who didn't make new records, but did get some statistics added. So Jackie Robinson was credited with an extra 49 hits that he got with the Kansas City Monarchs in 1945. Satchel Paige, now over 100 wins, was credited with 28 Negro League wins, which brings his total to 125. So over 100 wins in Major League Baseball.
Don't forget, Minnie Minoso is now officially in the 2000 hit club.
Yes, now Minnie Minoso in the 2000 hit club, getting 150 hits from his time with the New York Cubans. which brought his total to 2,113. So at the end of the day, and this is what's interesting. Apparently, the straw that stirred the drink for this, from a statement by I believe the people who ran the study in Major League Baseball, they said, if we're going to count the records from the 60-game COVID-shortened season in 2020,
they have to count Negro Leagues.
Then we should be able to count the Negro League shortened season records as well. So it took a worldwide pandemic that affected the ability to play the sport to the length of time that you would naturally play the sport. Because now you have to wonder, had COVID not happened, had Major League Baseball not had to drop to such a drastic season of just 60 games in 2020, because even in the strike-shortened season of 1994, they still played over 100 games, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head. So I think it was 120 games that season. So you're talking about 60 games, a little bit more than a third of the entirety of the regular season. And only because of that, they said, okay, we could probably do this. So are you telling me if COVID had not happened, if we had not had a 60-game season in 2020, would we be having this conversation in 2024 about Negro League statistics being integrated to the Major League record books?
Well, that brings up a valid point, because I remember in the 2020 season, there were people calling to asterisk the stats of that season, including the end-of-year awards as Rookie of the Year, MVP, all that good stuff, because some people made the argument, well, in 60 games, that's a very small sample size, because in a 162-game season, some guys take, like a guy like Francisco Lindor, for example, traditionally is a guy in the first 50 games of the year starts off slow and heats up as the season goes on. So, and I've seen this on Reddit, I've seen it on Twitter with this whole Negro League thing, because they were 60-game seasons in the Negro Leagues. And some people were saying, oh, well, 60 games, Josh Gibson, of course, he's going to have a 970 OPS because he played 60 games and started off hot. So, but again, we have to take the stats for what they are. We don't know if he would have played 162, what his stats would have looked like, because he was never afforded the opportunity to play 162 games. So, of course, we have to go with we have to work with what we have to go off of. And then my other counterpoint to that is, well, if Babe Ruth had to take at-bats against Satchel Paige or Cool Papa Bell, would he have hit all those home runs? So it's a devil's advocate. We have to just take the numbers for what they are, because if we're gonna people, and I told somebody this in a Facebook baseball group, if we're gonna sit here and argue about these guys, should these guys just be in, should they not be in, we're gonna be here all day, because they never got the chance to face each other. So who knows what would have happened on either side? Maybe Ty Cobb doesn't become the all-time average leader if he were to play against some of these guys.
All right. But at the end of the day, a necessary adjustment by Major League Baseball. And listen, these are just more records that are out of reach for modern day players, Chris, as you mentioned. I mean, listen, I don't think, and I'm willing to put money on it right here, right now, on Thursday, May 30th, 2024. I don't think we'll ever see another 400 season. I don't think we'll see, a hit streak go above 40-ish games ever again.
Well, 400 average season almost happened last season.
But
Luis Arias was he was over 400 for most of the season until the last month.
Right, but but again, you're talking about, when you're looking at that Ted Williams season, I don't think we're ever going to see that again. I mean, Arias, yes, got close, but
Tony Gwynn got close before the strike happened in 94.
Tony Gwynn is the only person who I actually thought might have done it. And I'm going to say this right now: Tony Gwynn does not get the flowers that he deserves or does not get talked about enough.
Talk about it.
When it comes to the legends of the 90s, and we talk, because we always talk about the Griffeys, we talk about the A-Rods, the Jeters, we talk about,
that's because Tony Gwynn was a contact guy in an era of home run hitters.
But he was still one of the best players. I mean, you can't talk about San Diego baseball without mentioning Tony Gwynn.
Mr. Padre.
Okay, the same way you're not talking about Minnesota baseball without mentioning Kirby Puckett.
Yep.
Or Torrey Hunter. Before the Joe Mauers and the Justin Morneaus, before the Juan Sotos and the Fernando Tatis Juniors, right? There were guys on these teams that were, long-standing institutions. And we can go team by team and talk about that one day. But speaking of team by team, I know this might be good news for Mr. Alphonse Stevens, but does anybody have a there we go. Someone have an ACL for ATL?
Is there a doctor in the house?
Right, Ronald Acuña,
for the second time in 3 years.
Ronald Acuña Jr. tearing his ACL, leading off from second base, if I'm not mistaken, in that game. And this is the second major injury, not just to Acuña, as you said, twice in 3 years, but the second major injury to Atlanta this year. They lost Spencer Strider, their number one pitcher, by a long shot early in the year, gone for the season. And now losing Ronald Acuña Jr. for the year as well. Are the Braves done, gentlemen? Grizz, I'm going to start with you. Are the Braves done in the National League?
Whew, that's it's tough. That's tough. I look at the Braves as this. Braves are a team that they're just a sneaky team. Do I think they find a way to possibly slip down to a wild card team? It just might happen. I mean, you still got the Phillies playing great baseball, who looks like they're running away with the NL. And you got the Mets, who could possibly catch up. The Mets can possibly catch up if they get it together through this summer. But as far as Atlanta goes, it's not looking good. You lost two of your stars now. I mean, it can happen. Anything can happen in this sport, but I don't see it personally.
Alphonse, I mean, listen, he said your Mets got a chance. Your Mets
they
have
do.
A chance.
They got a chance. The Mets have a chance. They just have to listen.
You have more faith. You have more faith in my team than I do. But I'm going to tell you why I'm going to tell you why I'm not counting the Braves out. Number one, have you seen that lineup is so deep? Yes, they lost Ronald Acuña Jr. However, they do have the major league leader in both home runs and RBIs. I don't know what's in his drink lately, but Marcell Ozuna, who a couple years ago, Atlanta Braves fans wanted off the team entirely, is having a hell of a season. Ozuna is a beast this year. They still have Matt Olson, who, even though he's off to a slow start kind of this year, if he heats up, forget about it. Of course, they still have Michael Harris, who was Rookie of the Year a couple years ago. They also have Ozzie Albies. So there's still a good team. And you want to look at their pitching rotation. Yes, they lost Spencer Strider, but Chris Sales had a career resurgence. So I mean, Reynaldo Lopez, ERA under 2 as a starter, not bad. And Brian Snitker is as much as I hate the Braves, Brian Snitker, hell of a manager. Guy won a World Series a couple years ago. He knows what he's doing. Yes, losing Ronald Acuña is a big blow, but when you look at the rest of that lineup, I think the Braves have I'm going to go on a limb here, the second best lineup in the National League still without Acuña in the lineup. People forget Sean Murphy is working his way back. That guy is a powerful hitting catcher. They're DHing Travis d'Arnaud, who's having a good season too. So don't sleep on the Braves or count them out just yet. Remember, when they won that World Series in 2021, Acuña was hurt with a torn ACL too. People forget that. He did not play in that World Series, and they still won. So I can't count out the Braves just yet. Yes, the Phillies are good. But the way that they're hitting the ball, is that sustainable the rest of the season? I don't know.
Well, it's tough. You lose your number one pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
You lose your number one. I would say your number one here because to me, Ronald Acuña is the straw that serves the drink in Atlanta. And to me, it's going to be very interesting to see if they can hold on, because right now the way the Phillies are playing, Atlanta looks like they're playing for second place in that NL East. They look like they're playing for that number one wild card spot. And are you going to be able to hang on? They are kind of lucky that the National League East is a little weak this year. I mean, Miami's not going to do anything. I don't expect the Mets have been scuffling.
Nationals are playing 500 ball for the most part, but I don't think that's going to be sustainable the rest of the season. But I hear what you're saying, but they've proved to us already that they can go all the way without their best player. They did it already 3 years ago.
But in this year's National League, I mean, listen, this ain't your mama's National League anymore, Alphonse. This is a pretty competitive National League this year. This isn't like, okay, it's just the Cardinals in the Central. It's somebody out west. We never know who, but it's somebody out west. And it's, the Phillies or the Mets or the Braves in the East, and that's really it. And you got that random, sometimes really, really good team, a Milwaukee or something in the Central. This is a National League this year that has 3 really good teams in the Central, 2 really good teams in the NL East, still counting the Braves in that, 2 teams that are middling, one that's playing above its baseball cards, and the other one is playing a little below its baseball cards in the Mets, but still 2 teams in the Mets and the Nationals that could do some damage. And in the West, while the Dodgers are running away with it, the Diamondbacks are not something to sleep on, and the Padres are still there, and the Giants are now showing up again. So it's not like Atlanta is just treading water against a bunch of nobodies. They've got some competition.
The core of that team are all World Series tested and proven. And like I said, again, I mean, the Dodgers, they've lost. You want to talk about the Dodgers? I don't know if you guys check their scores daily like I do, but they've lost some games that they should have won on paper.
Oh, yeah.
And my concern with the Dodgers is that they're so top-heavy, loaded with stars, that everybody forgets that the bottom of their order, batting-wise, is not good. They have Glasnow and Paxton have been very inconsistent to start this season, as has Yamamoto. People don't realize that. Kershaw hasn't pitched yet because he's been hurt. Walker Buehler made 2 starts before he ended up back on the IL. So the Dodgers, and I don't know if you guys look at lines or anything from Vegas, they've been favored in every single game so far on betting sheets, and it tells you something when they're favored every game because of the star power up front, but they come out flat in a lot of these games. And if Shohei or Mookie or Freddie Freeman don't hit, they don't win. You look at the bottom half of that lineup. Teoscar Hernandez, inconsistent. James Outman, who was battling for Rookie of the Year toward the end of the season last year, nowhere to be found. Jason Hayward, I don't even know why he's still an active major league player. He should be a hitting coach. But I mean, and Gavin Lux is not the superstar that they thought he was going to be when he was a prospect in 2018. So, I mean, say what you will, but I think the National League is wide open. It's not a guarantee for the Dodgers, the Braves. We don't know how they're going to play in the summer. And again, like I said, Acuña went down 3 years ago, and they still went on to win the whole thing. They've proven that I always say, history speaks for itself. They've proven they could do it once. If they do it again, I'm not going to be surprised. Even though I think that if they do get to the World Series in the current form that they are now, they'll be in trouble, depending on who makes it out of the AL.
This is very true. We'll get more into that in a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, this is the Dog Days of Baseball podcast, episode number 5. Pete Rosado, the voice of a generation, territory, and Alphonse Stevens, and self-made man right down there, Grizz, third in the pyramid today. So, Grizz, you've struggled a bit so far. in our episodic trivia section,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a bit excited to see how Alphonse is going to do this week. So, by the way, Alphonse, we've asked about Gold Gloves. We've asked about home runs. Today, I'm going to ask about something a little bit more career-wise. All right, and I'm going to again give you guys a little bit of grace here. You don't have to give me all 5, but of course, extra credit if you do. That's the teacher in me. Ladies and gentlemen, our episodic trivia question. Here it goes. Since 1980, only 5 players have achieved a career Triple Crown in Major League Baseball. Who are they?
Since 1980. Oh, my God. All right. The most recent one is Miggy. That I remember when he did it.
Ding, ding, ding. Miguel Cabrera, yes. That would be, in fact, 2004. Sorry, not 2004, 2009, I believe. Or no,
Yeah.
later, 2000, yeah. 2000, and that was in the teens. I think it was the year before he retired.
Now, are you saying, because there are 2 Triple Crowns, are we talking pitching too or just hitting?
No, just hitting. So this means a career Triple Crown. For those of you watching, it means that they didn't win the Triple Crown in one specific year, though in the case of Miguel Cabrera, he did. We're talking about a player who has led their respective league in home runs, average, and RBIs at least once in their career. So at one point in their career, they have led their respective league in one of those categories.
Okay,
Miguel
so
Cabrera, one of those 5.
I'll add on to that. Let's go Mickey Mantle.
Since 1980, sir.
Oh, since 1980. Okay. 1980. Said there's 5?
Yep, and we got 1. We got Miguel Cabrera.
Miguel Cabrera.
I'll give you guys a little bit of help here.
Okay.
You've got, of the remaining 4, 2 outfielders, 2 infielders.
And this is 1980 to present day.
Correct. And you got the most present one.
So the most recent was Miguel Cabrera.
Yes.
Huh.
The one before that, I'll give you some dates here, give you guys some extra help here. Before Miguel Cabrera, the last person to do it was in 2004. Then prior to that person, the other 2 were both in 2002. They completed their Triple Crowns. And then prior to that, 1996.
1996. Who the hell? 96. 2000. All right. Can I ask what league did they play in 2004? National or American?
In 2004, it was the American League.
American League 04.
So it wouldn't be Bonds.
But Bonds is one of them. So I'll give you that. Bonds was one in 2002. He completed his career Triple Crown. Bonds led. I'm going to go out on twice in average, twice in home runs, and once in RBIs.
I'm going to go out on a limb because something is telling me, from my knowledge of baseball video games, is Miguel Tejada one of them?
Miguel Tejada is not one of them.
Well, thank you, EA Sports, for putting him on the cover of Triple Crown Baseball. All right, so we got Bonds, and we've got Miggy.
You got one more outfielder.
One more outfielder.
2 infielders.
And 2 infielders.
2004 in the American? Ichiro?
No, sir. Ichiro never won the career Triple Crown.
Oh, no, because
Ichiro would have never have led the league in home run.
No. 2004 in the American League?
Well, remember, that was the year they completed that Triple Crown.
Wait, so you're not talking about all 3 of these things being in one season?
No. Career Triple Crown.
Albert Pujols.
No. We got one more strike, gentlemen. One more strike.
He completed it in 2004. So he had to have been playing for a hell of a long time. Vladimir Guerrero Sr.
Also, no. Also, no. Grizz, I'll give you one last shot to save this here. I'll give you a foul tip on that one.
04 American League. You said 2 outfielders and an infielder.
Yes, you have two infielders left, one
2
outfielder.
Outfielders, 1 outfielder left. Okay, I'll go with another Yankee. I'm gonna go Jeter.
Close, but no. Jeter would have never led the league in home runs. So your remaining ones, I'll give you them here. I'll actually edit this in the moment here. Your 5 players that led the league are Miguel Cabrera.
Okay.
Manny Ramirez. That's your 2004 guy.
Okay.
Your 2002 guys would be Barry Bonds. And the Yankee you were thinking of wasn't a Yankee yet. Alex Rodriguez won a career Triple Crown.
Okay.
And the earliest one, 1996, the big cat, Andres Galarraga.
Montreal Expo. God damn.
Wouldn't have got that.
Montreal Expos and Brave as well. So, gentlemen, let's go here before we get to our standings. Looking at our standings, I was looking at some things here. So, I've been looking around at some of these players around the league, and I got to ask you, if it was up to you right now to pick the Major League Baseball first team for 2024 so far, who you got position by position? Let's start at catcher right now. Who you got? Wilson Contreras, Salvador Perez, or Will Smith?
Will Smith.
Say Will Smith.
Yep.
I'm gonna be different. I'm gonna go Contreras.
Why Smith over Contreras and Perez, Alphonse?
Batting cleanup for the Dodgers is not easy, but Will Smith is successful doing it. Yeah. You're asking him to hit behind Mookie, Shohei Ohtani, and Freddie Freeman in that order. That's a lot of pressure in that spot, and so far he's been able to deliver. So I gotta go with the Fresh Prince of Chavez Ravine.
Well, Contreras has been one of the best hitters in period over his first 50 games. Guys, and a 934 OPS for Milwaukee, while Salvador Perez leading the American League through the first 50-something games with a 325 batting average, 9 home runs, 39 RBIs, and a 912 OPS. Interesting there. We'll see. Maybe Will Smith becomes the number 1 catcher in the league by the end of the year. Jumping over to first base, I think this one's going to be interesting because there's only 2, I think, that set themselves apart from the entire class. Who you got, Bryce Harper or Freddie Freeman?
The baseball purist in me and the old-timer in me is going to say Freddie Freeman because I personally don't feel that Bryce Harper is a first baseman. That's just my opinion, though. I mean, Harper's having a better year than Freeman is, but and this is gonna sound crazy. Freddie Freeman is having a down year this year by his standards, but still batting over 300, and they say he's slumping. That's crazy.
It is. Yeah, I that's a hard one because, again, I agree with Alphonse. I don't think Bryce Harper is a first baseman. And then again, Freddie Freeman, all around, is a better baseball player in my opinion. But if we're talking numbers here, you would have to go Bryce Harper. But you know what? I'm gonna take Freddie on this one. You're still batting 300. I mean, even though, like we said, Alphonse, it's still considered slumping in a way, you're on a team that it's just stacked at this point. It's a stacked team, and you're doing pretty much to your standards, his standards, mediocre work, and you're still batting 300. So I mean,
and if you look at that Dodgers first three, Mookie Betts and Ohtani are both batting over 330.
right.
And Freeman's batting 300. So do you even really need to bat 320 when the first two guys ahead of you are 330 and 340?
No, you could really bat 275. You'd be all right.
And we all know by today's standards, 250 is the new 300.
Basically.
This is very true. This is very true. All right, gentlemen. Going from first base to second base, another three-teamer here. Who you got? Ketel Marte, Jose Altuve, or Marcus Semien?
Neither.
Whoa! Who you taking as your second baseman all MLB?
Luis
For the
Arias.
first 50 games of the season.
Luis Arias. That guy doesn't get enough credit. Yeah, he's not a home run guy. He bats in the top of the order, so he's not an RBI guy. But that guy is a contact guy, and if I ever needed anybody to put money on to get a base hit every game, it would be Luis Arias. Guy's a hitting machine, pure contact.
Well, I know who I'm not picking. I'm not picking Altuve. I'm probably gonna go Semien, and this is still probably not the best lineup to pick from because there are more quality second basemen out there. But I would have to go Marcus Semien for sure.
Interesting there. It's funny because as Yankee fans, the two of us, myself and Grizz, it's interesting because you almost feel like Gleyber Torres used to be in this conversation.
Yeah.
But now it's so far removed from this conversation. Who you got at third base? Mr. I'm better than Barry Bonds, Jose Ramirez, Rafael Devers, or Alec Baum? Boom.
This is something. I would want to pick Ramirez just off of the season Cleveland is having right now, and his numbers are there. I mean, he's averaging what? 277, 9 home runs, 25 RBIs at home. 271 so far, 16 home runs, 56 RBIs, OPS of 883. The Yankee fan in me cannot pick Devers. I'm sorry. That's just going to be biased. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen. Anything Boston is not going to happen with me. So if anybody's expecting that, I'm sorry. Alec, let's pull up his numbers real quick. Let's see what's going on with Alec here. You got 308 with 5 home runs, 47 RBIs, OPS of 859. I might have to go with Alec on the numbers, man. Numbers don't lie. You know, even though Ramirez has a higher OPS, I might have to go with Alec. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Alec. Just to add the batting average.
Alphonse, who you got?
308.
Who you got at third base?
I'm going Jose Ramirez. I am very guilty of having bias towards switch hitters. And anytime a guy is producing, even 278, if a guy's hitting from both sides of the plate, which is not easy to do, and can still hit 278, give it to him.
That's not a bad pick.
I'm going to have to, apparently, according to Grizz, given my Yankee card, Devers is the beast this year. Devers is a absolute beast this year. I think he went first time went 4 straight games with a home run. And I mean, listen, Boston has played well above its statistics this year, and a lot of it has been because of the hitting of Rafael Devers. I got to give it up where it's due. Now at shortstop, I'm going to be very honest with you. I'm surprised that her name is not on this list and did not get some love from early all MLB voters. No Anthony Volpe on this list, but who you got at shortstop? Mookie Betts, Gunnar Henderson, or Bobby Witt Jr.?
Man.
Oh, that's an easy question.
Oof.
I'm going
Alphonse, who you got?
Mookie Betts. Better average than the other two.
That is true.
And you also got to remember, again, on a team where he's got superstars all over the place, he doesn't really need to do what he's doing and is still doing it. On top of that, people got to remember, Mookie Betts never played shortstop in the entirety of his career. A lot of people will tell you, oh, he played second base. Second base and shortstop, two totally different animals.
Yeah.
For a guy who's never played the position in his career and has only made one error so far this season, that's pretty damn impressive. So I'm going to go with Mookie because how could you argue the production, the offensive production? And again, he's the leadoff hitter in that lineup. It's not like Gunnar Henderson where he's got Santander and Adley Rutschman in front of him. It's not like Bobby Witt Jr., who's I believe he bats third in their lineup. He bats fourth, behind Salvador Perez. So, I mean, some of these guys are protected. Mookie has to set the tone for the offense. If Mookie's off, the rest of the lineup might be off. And again, Gunnar Henderson, shortstop. Bobby Witt, shortstop. This man, Mookie Betts, was a second baseman. Then he went to right field. Never touched shortstop till, I think, the second week of spring training this year. So maybe Dave Roberts knew something that the rest of us didn't know. And one error in 55 games for a guy who's never played that position before, I take it.
And Mookie Betts has been an absolute monster. All right, here's an interesting debate here. I'm going to give you a starting outfield, not individual outfield. I'm going to give you a starting outfield. Who do you got? The starting outfield of Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, and Houston's Kyle Tucker, or Tatis Jr., Stephen Kwan, and Texas's Adolis Garcia?
That's also a
no mixing and matching here, gentlemen. It's one starting outfield or the other.
Oh, that's easy. I would take the first outfield, both defensively and offensively.
Yeah.
Fernando Tatis, I give him credit. He had to learn a new position. Of course, he was a shortstop when he started, but he hasn't defensively. He still looks like he's uncomfortable out there. Stephen Kwan is a good pick. Stephen Kwan won a Gold Glove a couple of years ago. No problem there. And Adolis Garcia, El Bombi, he's great offensively when he's hot, but when he's cold, he's cold. And on top of that, not the greatest defender. Soto has shown us he can play defense. He has a hell of an arm. Judge has a hell of an arm. Plus, Soto and Judge, their bats speak for themselves on the back of their baseball cards. And Kyle Tucker was once a World Series hero. So I take the first outfield.
I think your jersey's going to do the talking, Grizz.
It's going to do the talking. I mean, listen, at this point, can we just give Soto a blank check and let him write whatever he wants on it so we can just end this already? That's number one. Judge finally,
not with Hal
it.
Steinbrenner in charge.
Yeah, not with Hal Steinbrenner in charge. It's not going to happen.
I don't think Aaron Judge would be okay with getting paid less than Juan Soto.
Judge finally, because we talked about it. We talked about his slumping a couple of episodes back. Finally has woke up and has hit a home run every game in most of the series they played.
Yeah.
So that's going well for him. Kyle Tucker, I mean, I don't watch much Houston's games, but I know what he's capable of. So, and like Alphonse said, a World Series hero. So obviously, I'm going with Judge, Soto, and Kyle Tucker for that 3-pair outfield, 3 of a kind for sure.
All right, gentlemen, this one's probably the biggest one, and I added one here. I took off, I'm going to be very honest with you. I took Yamamoto off one of these rotations. So I'm going to give you a starting 5, all MLB. Again, we're going first 50-something games of the season. Who you got as the starting rotation, all MLB. I took out Yamamoto, and I think you're going to know who I put in when you see it here. Do you have the starting rotation of Skubal in Detroit, Wheeler in Philadelphia, Imanaga in Chicago, Glasnow in LA, and Corbin Burns in Baltimore? Or do you have the starting rotation of Atlanta's Chris Sale, Philly's Ranger Suarez, Kansas City's Cole Reagans, San Diego's Dylan Cease, and the Yankees' Luis Gil?
You know what? I'm probably gonna have to go Scooble, Wheel, and Economic. I mean, that's shutdown innings. You're getting shutdown innings from these guys. And Zach Wheeler, I mean, it don't disrespect to the Mets, but I just didn't know that he had that in him. Like as far as from the last time I seen him to now, it's been a lot. I know you've praised Imanaga on here at immense times, and I've sat down and watched. I agree with you. I am a believer, for the wrestling fans out there. Joe Hendry reference, I believe. So definitely that. So I'd have to go with that. And no disrespect to Luis Gil, because that's home team and everything. No disrespect to Corbin Burns as well, doing amazing work. Dylan Cease is a guy who we wanted on the Yankees and couldn't get didn't have the trade offer on the table for him. So I'm definitely going with Scuba Wheeler and Imanaga for sure.
Alphonse?
I have issues with both of these rotations, to be honest with you. As far as rotation number 2, Cole Reagans is not even the best starter on his team numbers-wise.
Mm-hmm.
You're overlooking the ex-Met Seth Lugo, who's at a 1.7 ERA. So I can't go with that. Glasnow is inconsistent numbers-wise. If we're looking at Dodgers starters, James Paxton has better numbers than him. And I think Sonny Gray should be somewhere on one of these rotations. But if I had to pick, I probably would go with the first rotation of Scooble, Wheeler, Imanaga, Glasnow, and Burns.
They have the better ERA.
Better ERA, and I still have injury concerns about Chris Sale. Ranger Suarez, before this season, this is his first season as a full-time reliever, so I don't know if he'll be sustainable for the rest of the campaign. And I'm not 100% sold on Luis Gil.
Well, you know quite a way to segue, because I added one last one in, and it has nothing to do with positions, but I got to ask you two, who's been the better rookie pitcher so far? Shota Imanaga or Luis Gil?
Wow. Imanaga, by far.
Imanaga. Yeah.
And to believe,
I mean, I'm gonna give credit to Gil, because you also have the pressure of being in the Yankee rotation, and not only being in the Yankee rotation. Listen, we want to talk about wrestling references here. He didn't just get a spot; he got the spot. He got Garrett Cole's spot. This is not just, you're the 5th guy in the rotation. Carry on, young man. It's, hey, you're kind of the guy that we're slotting in because Garrett Cole is out. And look at the way he is pitching. I mean, the man has been unhittable. He pitched 8 innings of what? 1-run ball.
Yep.
In last night's game, this past Wednesday night against the Angels. And it's not just the Angels. He pitched really, really well against great competition. And by comparison, Shota Imanaga got blasted by Milwaukee in his last start. And I've been sitting here singing the praises of Shota Imanaga. But I think both of these young men have been incredible.
But to answer your question, is getting blasted by the division leader in just one start out of how many starts he's made, that's his first bad game. Everybody's entitled to a bad game. I'd rather get shelled by the top team in my division than a bottom feeder. But as far as Gil goes, I think what also helps his case is the fact that Nestor Cortez and Marcus Stroman have looked incredibly mediocre to start this season.
Yeah.
So, and Rodon has been on and off hurt. So, and no Garrett Cole. So somebody in that rotation has to stand out.
Yeah, Gill pitching. Gill, his worst start of the year was April 26th against the Brewers, 5 innings, 5 runs. Other than that game, the most runs he's allowed in any game was against the Blue Jays back on April 15th, where he allowed 3 runs. Also had 7 walks in that game. He had a 14 strikeout game against the White Sox, setting a Yankees rookie record. And he has had 1, 2, 3, 4 starts where he's given up no earned runs and more than 6 innings pitched. Incredible for a guy, especially when we talk about in the pressure cooker of New York.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I agree with you on this. It's hard being, like you said, being the guy. You're not 5th in the rotation, and we also talked about the Yankees rotation and how this is going to look. So now, for setting up a future episode, when we do talk about when Garrett Cole comes back, where does Luis Gil fit into that rotation? Is he going to be?
I don't want to take him out.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to take him out either, because now you redo the rotation. If Cole comes back, and this is something that I saw online that somebody said, if Garrett Cole comes back and pitches like the Cy Young Award winner that he pitched last year, the Yankees are a contender. That's what they had said. I personally don't believe that. I don't think they're a contender. Is the bullpen better than what it is now? Absolutely. You have those guys that can kind of hide, like you have that Marcus Stroman that has been inconsistent. You have that Carlos Rodon that has been inconsistent and hurt. Nestor Cortez, who's not really looking like nasty Nestor like we know him to be. So you kind of have those guys kind of just, smoke screening, if you will. So with Luis Gil, now maybe you slide him to maybe 3rd or 4th in the rotation. Who do you take out? And I guess like that sets up for a future episode where we can sit there and we can debate who's who. But I agree with you. I don't think we take Gil out this rotation, because right now
and you got to wonder if either one of these gentlemen are going to be in the conversation for Rookie of the Year or the Cy Young in their respective divisions, because they've been so incredible. Obviously, offensively, you've got guys like Gunnar Henderson and things like that in the American League that kind of make it a little bit crowded for a guy like Luis Gil. But to me, like, these are 2 young men who are legitimately making cases, I think, for both of those awards this year, a Cy Young and a Rookie of the Year nod for either one of them.
I agree.
We're gonna wrap up with our final topic of the night. So we are past Memorial Day, gentlemen, and I don't know if you know what that means, but according to Elias Sports, 58% of all teams that were in sole position of first place on the morning of June 1st have gone on to win their divisions in the wild card era, with the exception this has been since 1995 and excluding 2020. So since 1995, 58% of teams that were in sole possession of first place after Memorial Day have gone on to win their respective divisions. And when we talk about the standings right now, first place in the American League East, the New York Yankees. First place in the American League Central, the Cleveland Guardians. Seattle Mariners out west. In the National League, it's the Phillies, the Brewers, and the Dodgers. The lowest division lead is 1.5 in the American League East, followed by 3 games in both the Central and the West. So, gentlemen, I'm gonna leave it to you to chat us up real quick. What surprises you the most about these standings, and what's the biggest disappointment about these standings to you, and what's a reality, what's a mirage after Memorial Day 2024?
The reality is Dodgers are first in the West. I called that the minute I saw their first spring training game. I'm just surprised that the Dodgers don't have a bigger lead in their division, because with all that star power, they're only 14 games above 500. I thought they'd be running away with it. The Giants are 1 game above 500. The Padres are 1 game above 500. The Rockies are 15 below, and the Diamondbacks are 5 below, but they'll be 4 below after they finish beating up on the Mets as we record this. But that's been the surprise. The biggest. I'm not surprised with any of these NL standings. I did expect the Phillies to either be first or contend for first, and that's happened, especially with Acuña gone in Atlanta. And the Brewers are just repeating what they did last season. Cardinals are at 500. The Cubs are 1 game under 500. And then, of course, you have the bottom feeders of the National League, and the Pirates and the Reds at the bottom. So I'm not surprised there. No surprise in the AL East because the Yankees and the Orioles have been trading first place back and forth. Those two teams are going to play in the postseason regardless. I think the biggest surprise for me is that the Twins, who started off this season so hot, are not in first place right now. 6 games above 500. Nobody expected, especially with losing Shane Bieber a week into the season after 2 starts. I didn't think the Guardians, who, if you ever watch Guardian games, Grizz, they are not an overly powered offensive team. No. They're a contact team. They're a put the ball on the ground type of team. They're not a heavy home run team. They don't hit balls in the gaps. That's a surprise. The Royals being 12 games over 500, that's a surprise too, because the Royals have been so bad for so long, except for the 1 year they wanted to win a championship. They had to beat my Mets, but they've been so bad for so long that nobody ever expected anything out of them. And then in the West, I mean, the Mariners have made the playoffs each of the last 2 years. I'm kind of shocked that the Astros got off to the slow start that they did. Angels and Athletics will always be bad, but plenty of baseball still left to go. But as we sit here today, the only surprise in my book is the Royals over 500 and the Guardians leading that Central. Prior to the season, I had the Twins written in ink to run away with the Central.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I don't. First place standings are the first place standings. I don't really see any difference. I mean, I did kind of expect the defending champs to be a little more competitive. Right now, they're sitting at 27 and 29. You know, with their splits at home. They're 14 and 13 at home, and they're 4 and 6 in their last 10 right now. So, and they're sitting in second place in the American League West. I expect them to be a little bit better than. They're not even playing 500 baseball.
Well, you also remember they're missing key pieces of their rotation.
That is true too. That is true too. Which that's probably the downfall of their whole season, which is having 2 guys that you heavily rely on that are never available half the time. Now you move on to the Central. I agree with you. The Twins started off hot. The Twins started off so hot. They started off as a team that was definitely it looked like they were going to run away with the Central. It didn't even look competitive at this point. The Royals just came out of nowhere. I don't know what happened. I don't know, what hotel they slept in, if they got, whatever. I have no clue. But the Royals out of nowhere just woke up and wanted to play baseball. And
you know what the scary thing about Minnesota is? They started losing games when their star players who were hurt came back.
Yeah.
Buxton and Correa came back, and now they don't remember how to win games.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Cleveland, like you said, they're not a big home run threat kind of team. They are more, I guess you could say, fundamental type of team.
And their pitching rotation is not great either.
Yeah, their pitching rotation is horrible. So you have Kansas City, who has a chance to take that top spot if they continue to play the way they're playing. You're talking about a team that's 21 and 8 right now at home, 14 and 15 on the road, and of their last 10, they're 6 and 4. And they're 3 games behind. So for me, I think by the time we talk about this again, I could see Kansas City going into that number 1 spot. I think now it's more so the shocker of who's going to get that, who's going to be a wild card team that shouldn't be a wild card team in the AL.
I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to take the Detroit Tigers with that one.
Okay. Tigers are 27-28, 9.5 behind, 4-6 over their last 10. I don't know. I don't know if I'm fully sold on the Tigers being a wild card team. I don't even know if I could put Kansas City there. I don't know if I could put Minnesota there because honestly, we don't know what's going to happen. Wow. And then you got the Astros who are climbing up the ranks so far now. There's a lot of possibilities for this American League. I think,
and remember, this is a Cleveland team that lost Shane Bieber,
right,
and is riding an incredibly locked down bullpen.
If you look at their starters are terrible. Not a single starter is above 500 in the win-loss record. Logan Allen, Tanner Beebe, Tristan McKenzie, my old good friend Carlos Cookie Carrasco. They all stink, but they manage to win games.
I mean, and winning games at a 660 clip. They also have the third best run differential in the American League.
And we can't even say
plus 74.
We used to be able to say, oh, well, it's the division they play in. We can't even say that anymore because the schedule now is everybody plays everybody.
Yeah.
So there are less division games on the schedule now than in years past. So they're just a really good team. They just know what to do to win. And you got to give their manager Stephen Vogt a lot of credit. Rookie manager, he might end up being manager of the year.
Yeah.
Listen, but you know what's most surprising to me in the American League is the fact that the Houston Astros have not been good at all and are still right there. And the Astros, to me, are that team that you don't want them getting into the playoffs. Yeah,
that's right.
You don't want them getting into the playoffs. You don't want them getting that shot because they're that team that, man, they get into the playoffs and they could cause some damage. This is a team that has played like absolute crap all year and yet is still only a game and a half out of second in their own division, 5.5 out of first. This is not a team you want to see in a wild card play-in game. This is not a team you want to see in a wild card series, let alone a division series.
And don't forget, the only reason they've been struggling, Ronald Blanco got caught with sticky stuff, and Verlander's been hurt.
Yeah.
You know, they're 14-15 at home. Seattle has been really, really good. They're 18-11 at home, but in fact, the best home record in the American League goes to the Kansas City Royals. They're 21-8 at home.
Yeah.
With the second best run differential in the American League at plus 80. In fact, they have the fourth best run differential in the entire major leagues behind only the Yankees, who have finally taken – the Yankees are not the top spot. Phillies, which are number 1. The Yankees, number 2. The Dodgers are 3. And then your Kansas City Royals are number 4.
I think that's the – I know we're talking about, first place and everything, but I still believe it's when it comes down to it, when the dust settles and we get closer to talking about playoffs, we're going to be talking about what team is going to be a wild card team. And one of these teams that are a wild card team, we're going to sit here and say they do not deserve to be a wild card team. They are going to be a team that can either win their division or should have won their division. Definitively.
And
happens every year.
Look at it does. It happens every year.
Here's what's scary. The Rangers are nowhere near optimum strength. This is the team that is going to add Jacob deGrom, Max Scherzer, and Tyler Mahle to the rotation in the second half of the season, coming back completely healthy after rehab assignments. You're going to have Josh Jung has been injured for the first 50-something games, and their 2 big rookies, Carter and Langford, haven't really kind of hit as their projections have shown. So, we're looking at a Rangers team that may look completely different post All-Star break.
Well, that just
And
goes
already
to show
won a
you.
World Series.
Yeah, that just goes to show you by what? July, June, we should know. July, really. By July, we should know exactly what teams are going to be what. We're getting a larger sample size come July of each team in the American League and where they're going to be at. Because this race is going to get, at least for the American League West, that race is going to be tight. That's going to be a tight race. And then we still have trade deadline coming up. And each team, if certain teams can make one definitive trade that can change their season around, we're going to be having a completely different conversation. We could be having a completely different conversation about the Houston Astros. Like you said, they have played like just complete garbage this season. It is not the Houston Astros that we know and hate. Well, we hate, but this is not the Houston Astros that we know. So the Houston Astros can make a significant trade at trade deadline, turn their season around, and now we could be sitting here saying, well, they're 2 games away from first or 5 games away from first. However, they could sneak in here. That's a team that can sneak in. I think the most interesting part of this is seeing if Seattle can hold on to first place. That's the most interesting thing about for at least for me in the American League. Can Seattle hold on to first place?
Now, Grizz, you brought up something a lot earlier in the show, back in our second topic about Atlanta's injury woes, about the Mets still having a chance. And I'm going to ask a question that I'm sure is probably going to give our team member here a bit of an ulcer. Which New York return is going to have the bigger impact on the trajectory of their team? Cole or Senga?
I can see the stress on Alphonse's face right now.
It's Cole. It's Cole.
It is Cole. I was going to be nice, but it is Cole. You know what? Okay. So for this reason, I say Cole. I say Cole for one. He's coming off a career year last year. And unfortunately, he did not start off the season with the team. He started off hurt. Now we're getting him back. You could argue, well, in July. We're getting him back in July, in the months that really matter. The months we're going to need him. July, August, September, most of October-ish. So you're talking about a guy who is pretty much shut down innings, shut down ace for the Yankees. And now you have Luis Gil, who's probably going to be pitching behind him or third in the rotation, arguably, where he should be. And it poses the same question. Does that make the Yankees a contender? I mean, we don't have to answer that right now, but it damn sure makes a good argument for them to be a contender, especially where the numbers are for this bullpen at right, where the Yankees bullpen is right now. So it's going to be Garrett Cole. I think that puts the Yankees on the pedestal that the Yankees are always want to be on, which is championship or bust. So I'm going to go Garrett Cole. Sorry, Mets fans.
Oh, no, nothing to be sorry about, because when Kodai Senga comes back, he'll be walking right into a dumpster fire. The Mets have no heart. The way that David Stearns, our great GM, is carrying himself, a couple of our best players are no longer going to be on this team after the first weekend in July when the trade deadline comes around. Bye-bye, Pete Alonso. I love you.
You got
Thank
rid of
you
one
for
of your worst
contributions
players this weekend.
Well, yeah, shout out to Jorge Lopez, because even though I hate what he said, I respect the honesty. But
do it in another
yeah.
uniform, though. Like, wait until you've got another uniform on. Like, listen, I get the honesty. right? I get it. You're frustrated, right? You're pissed off. Your team's not that good. But you don't stand there in the clubhouse with the uniform on and say that. The fact that, call me brutish, call me old school, but the fact that the man did not have that jersey ripped off of his body and beaten down to a bloody pulp and asked to walk out of the arena in his freaking skivvies and jockstrap is mind-blowing to me. Because if you're on a team and you're wearing the jersey, you say what you want to say about the team in private. You don't talk bad about the team in public, especially to the degree of, I'm on the worst team in baseball.
The worst team in all of effing MLB was the quote. And Steve Gelbs asked him what he meant by that, and he doubled down on the statement. But no, going back to the Mets, they're a team. Edwin Diaz, I don't know what happened to him. Maybe they're shooting a baseball version of Space Jam, and the Monstars took his abilities away. But that guy is no longer the shutdown closer he was pre-World Baseball Classic. But
hold on, wait, what's this? Wait, hold on. It's Aroldis Chapman. Here you go.
Listen.
He knows exactly what that's about.
Yeah.
Listen, and then Edwin Diaz said that he wouldn't mind a demotion out of the closer role, which you can tell where his head and his heart is at. And then
I got a lot of respect for that, though.
What's that?
I have a lot of respect for that because, listen, if there's one thing we know, that closers usually are so stuck in their ego that they can't see themselves like, oh, I have to just, they have that mentality of like shooters in basketball where it's like to get out of a cold streak, I got to shoot more. And he stepped out of his ego, in my opinion. He stepped out of his ego and said, listen, I'm going to hurt
In my opinion, that's a cop-out because Edwin Diaz was bad in his first season in Flushing. In 2019, he had all these blown saves. And one thing about Edwin Diaz, when you put pressure on him, he folds. So I think he just wants to be in a lower degree of pressure type situations. And then you look at all the guys we paid when Cohen first bought the team. They extended McNeil. They gave Nimmo this big deal that I didn't think he deserved, and they're not hitting. Lindor, who I like to refer to as the $341 million man, he's struggling. He's the highest paid guy on the team. If you need a guy to strike out, I'd gladly do it for 10 grand, let alone 341 million. Pete Alonso's hurt now. And he's probably gonna go bye-bye at the deadline. Pay the man because 40 homers and 100 RBIs is not easy to come by on a consistent basis. But man,
who'd they give that big contract to again?
Which contract?
You were saying Nimmo it was?
No, they gave Nimmo a mega extension, and the guy doesn't play more than 80 games in a season.
And yet, they still couldn't find money to give to Daniel Murphy.
Nope.
Well, with that, they had to that's a different situation. They had two guys that commanded big money, and I think they made the wrong decision because Daniel Murphy won a Silver Slugger 2 seasons after he left Flushing, but and was in the MVP race in one of them. But
do you regret the Lindor signing?
Yes, I regret the Lindor signing.
I would.
I regret it because we all know that, and we've seen it. 10-year contracts in baseball have never been a great thing because the Angels gave Pujols a 10-year deal, and he didn't even finish his career there. They cut him in year 9. They cut him in year 8. Sorry, because then he went to the Dodgers, and then he finished his career in St. Louis. Look at Mike Trout now. Mike Trout, they gave him that mega deal, and Mike Trout is like an old man, an old relic of baseball, and it's a shame that the Angels wasted that generational five tool talent. So 10-year contracts in baseball have never ever been a good idea because on the back end you don't get the production, or the player is not as good as he was 5 years prior. So to sign a shortstop for 10 years, and I don't know because in Cleveland this guy was good. The guys that they traded for him, being Ahmed Rosario, who's no longer in Cleveland, and Andres Jimenez, have both had more hits and better batting averages than Lindor in his entire time in Flushing. So But yet they don't want to pay Pete Alonso. The guy gives you 40 homers and 100 RBIs consistently every year. But what do I know? I'm sitting here on an internet show. Don't listen to me.
Well, I gotta ask. Lindor seems to be aging super duper fast, and again, the Mets have a history of some pretty bad, signings. Obviously, free agent signings and trades. We all remember the Victor Zambrano trade.
Mo Vaughn.
Mo Vaughn. And then when we go to the free agent signings, I mean, do I have to bring up Michael Kadire?
Jason Bay.
I liked Jason Bay in Flushing. You quiet on that one.
Jay Bruce.
Luis Castillo.
Jeremy Burnitz.
Stop it. One of my favorite Met outfielders of all time. You stop it right there. Also, one of the only few Brewers to ever hit back-to-back hit grand slams in the same innings as a teammate. But you know who this reminds me of? The way Lindor's kind of playing to a degree. Cespedes.
Yeah.
It brings to mind a lot of that Yoenis Cespedes time where it was just like, he's too big of a name to not continue putting him out there, but he's not producing, but you also know you kind of got to pay him.
But you know what the difference is, Pete, between Cespedes and Lindor? Cespedes was very injury prone in his time in Flushing. Lindor hasn't been. Lindor's been consistently out there. In his three, he played 2021, 22. So this is his fourth season in Queens. And with the exception of 2021, he's been healthy. He missed 35 games in 2021 with an injury, but he's been healthy. So he's been consistently out there. I think the issue with him, he needs to stop batting switch. He needs to bat from the right side every at bat.
Yeah, I agree.
Stop batting switch, because obviously batting left-handed is not your thing, bro.
Oh, look, the Mets won against
and
Arizona.
They won.
Hey. But it also brings to mind to me, granted, I know Lindor's, a shortstop, but it brings mind to me Luis Castillo. It brings to mind to me Roger Cedeno. And Alphonse, I know me and you talk about this a lot private. I know your one biggest fear, your one biggest concern is that David Stearns is going to trade away the polar bear, trade away Pete Alonso at the end of the year. Is it? And I'm asking you to do a really tough thing right here. I'm going to ask you to kind of step out of the Mets jersey for a moment. Is it better for the Mets to get what they can for their big name stars? Because somebody will pick up a Lindor. Somebody will definitely take Alonso, things like that. Get back the pieces that they need and really, from the ground up, start a real rebuild of this team. Or is it worth more to keep Alonso and hope that you can build around him?
Stepping outside of the Mets jersey, when you look at the Mets farm system is loaded. Luis Angel Acuña, they went and got last season. They have Jet Williams, who's a phenomenal pitching prospect, and they got a few other impressive names down in both Syracuse and Brooklyn, and St. Lucie, for matter of fact. So your farm system is already loaded. Do you really want to continue to pump into it? I mean, Pete Alonso has come out in the media and said, I want to be a New York Met for life. That tells you that he wants to resign. Why are we trying to undercut him? And again, with the exception of the COVID season, granted, his batting average stinks. However, like another ex-Met and Dave Kingman, Every time he makes contact with the ball, it's going over the fence. The guy hit 215 last year, 215. But he had over 40 home runs and he had over 100 RBI. You really can't. I mean, Kyle Schwarber's putting up similar numbers in Philly and they love him. So why would you not? Why would you not pay the slugger? Multiple time
Well,
All-Star,
you yourself said the 10-year deals have not been a good idea for the Mets, and we know the story is out of Flushing that Alonso turned down a 7-year, $158 million extension last summer to re-sign with the team. He's represented by Scott Boras. Is this a matter of, and I'm going to be very honest with you, this is the same argument I had for an Aaron Judge as well. Is it worth it to give the big year deal to the power guy when we know power's the first thing to go as they age? Do you want to be saddled with that 10-year contract again with Pete Alonso? Or if it comes to 10-year for exorbitant amount of money that hampers the payroll, or move on from Alonso, is it a smarter decision, even though Met fans won't feel that way, to move on?
So one, if they move on, they're going to lose the fan base. The Mets have done some really, really incredulous things as far as moving on from players at the wrong time that cost them the fan base for a couple of years. You remember when they traded Tom Seaver to Cincinnati? How that attendance suffered and never came back up for a while.
But if you get Juan Soto,
we're not getting Juan Soto. You're crazy.
He's a free agent, and listen, I know my Yankees want him. He wants to be a Yankee. He said that much. People in his camp have said that he does want to be a Yankee. But as you heard me and Grizz mention earlier, the way Hal Steinbrenner's been talking, if we sign Soto, we're not going to be able to, sign anybody else. This is not George. Hal is so far removed from George. I'd rather have David Stearns at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I think it's a mistake to move on from Alonso. Again, yes, power is the first thing to go, but you don't have to give him 10 years. He turned down 7 and 158. I would give him 8 and maybe bump up that 158 to maybe a 180, front load the contract. That way, if you do have to move on after year 5 or year 6, it's not going to cost you much. I wouldn't do what they did with Robinson.
Boras going to let that happen?
I don't think so.
You never know. I mean, I wouldn't do what the Mets did with Robinson Cano, where they gave him the bulk of the money in the back end, and when they cut him and bought him out, they had to pay $40 million. So I would give him 8 and just pump the money up. I'm not giving him 10. I hate the idea of 10-year contracts because you take away power from Pete Alonso, and you might as well put your grandmother at first base. So, I mean. And then also, what's the other thing to go after power is bat speed. You take those two things away from him, and he's not a defensive stalwart either. So he really would have no value other than being maybe a DH after a certain point. But I still think Alonso's. I'd rather get rid of Lindor before I get rid of Alonso, just from an offensive production. Because again, you look at MLB and the landscape of MLB today. There are very few guys who can give you consistently 40 home runs every year and 100 RBIs every year. Again, his batting average stunk. His batting average stinks. And even so, he's a career 260 hitter, which is not bad. The last couple of seasons, his average has dipped, but because batting averages don't win you games. RBIs win you games. Home runs win you games. Why am I letting that go? And then what are they going to do? Try to get 3 or 4 players to get those stats combined? That's not smart.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I understand if you're not going to re-sign him, at least try to get something for him. But again, why would you get rid of the homegrown guy? The guy's the face of the team. They brought in a superstar after he was already there, and he's still the face of the team. When I think of Mets, I think of Alonso before I think of Lindor. So,
Grizz, if you're Scott Boras, if you're Pete Alonso, are you chasing the money of the Bryce Harper contract, 13,330, average annual value of $25 million a year, or are you trying to chase that average annual value of Freddie Freeman, who signed 6 for $162 for an average annual salary of 27, making him the highest paid first baseman?
I think you go after the Freddie Freeman deal. I agree with Alphonse. I don't like the 10-year contracts, 13-year, the 14 years, because at the end of the day, the team gets stuck. That's you've seen it. You've seen it happen with Bryce Harper. You've seen it happening with
Manny Machado's got a 12-year deal.
Yeah, Manny Machado's got a 12-year deal. And look at how
Tatis has a long deal, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
Tatis has a long deal.
Mike Trout.
I mean, Wander
has a 10-year
Franco,
deal.
Wander Franco, we don't have to worry about anymore. His deal's almost as old as the girls he deals with.
No.
Mike Trout got a 10-year as well, and he's broken down now.
Yeah. So, I mean, at this point, I wouldn't say let's ratify those long deals, because at the end of the day, those long deals are gonna be there. And it sucks because now the new generation coming in, the guys that are playing that are going to be the stars of tomorrow are going to get those long deals, and they're probably going to take them.
And they're gonna kill the market. That's what they're doing.
Exactly.
I mean, I'll say this: outside of what he did, I thought the Wander Franco deal was smart because you locked him into a long-term deal at a young age. You took a 21-year-old guy, 22-year-old guy, whatever it was, and you gave him a 10-year deal. Okay, he's going to be a free agent while he's still technically in some sort of his prime in his early 30s, versus giving the 10-year deal to the 29-year-old who isn't a free agent again until he's 39, and their agents are smart enough to say, hey, let's try to negotiate an extension when you're like 33, halfway through the contract, to kind of get you some more money because you're not going to make it to the end of the deal.
And that's going to happen to the likes of a Bobby Witt. Right now, that's probably what's going to happen eventually in the future. If he continues the trend that he's trending on, that's going to happen to one of these guys. Or like a Gunnar Henderson. They're going to get those long-term deals because of the things that they're doing now. And
Julio Rodriguez, too.
Julio Rodriguez is a prime, perfect example. These guys are in their early 20s or mid-20s.
Very young.
Yeah, they're very young. If they do take those long-term deals, they're still going to be able to be in their prime. We're talking Bobby Witt, who's 21, 22, somewhere around there.
Sorry to cut you off, Grizz, but what's very telling? Juan Soto is still very young.
Yes.
We got to remember
26, I believe.
25.
We gotta remember, this kid Juan Soto won a World Series at the age of 19. He was still a teenager when he won that World Series and hit those 2 home runs in that series. And he was smart enough to turn down a 14-year deal. Remember, when the Nationals offered him that contract, if he would have signed that, he would have been the highest paid player in MLB history.
I forgot he was on the Nationals.
Yep.
Yeah, when they won that World Series in 2019. Yep. And they offered him somewhere in the ballpark. I think it was 14 years and like $367 million. And he said no. He said no. I don't blame him because Washington is like being in purgatory. But that's just very telling that a guy would turn down a 14-year deal. And even so, he's 26 now. He's the one guy that I would give a 10-year deal to in the league, and not just because of what he's doing now. Because 36 by baseball years is not old. It's not till you hit 38, 39.
13 for 350.
Even that. I mean, I wouldn't give him a 13-year. I would give him the max.
Nationals offered him prior to the lockout. They offered him a 13-year, $350 million contract extension that would have taken him through his age 35 season. And then in 2022, the Nationals came back with a 15-year, $440 million offer.
And he turned that down.
which also got turned down. And according to Scott Boras, in 2021, he stated, quote, Juan Soto still thinks of Washington as the place where he'd like to spend the rest of his career. I don't believe Scott Boras when he opens his mouth.
No.
Yeah.
And if you look at all the Scott Boras clients who were free agents in this offseason, none of them got the deals that they wanted. Blake Snell didn't. Jordan Montgomery was the last minute that he didn't. JD Martinez, I mean, thank God he's one of the more competent Mets hitters in my lineup, but I mean, he didn't get the money that he wanted. The only one who's even producing out of that group, because none of them are producing, is Cody Bellinger. And even he didn't get the deal that he wanted. And these guys held out for a heck of a long time.
Well,
Yeah.
if it's up to me, I think you take the shorter deal. I don't think you go long term, especially with the Mets. I think you always have a way to ask out, because even if you get halfway through that contract, you get a 6-year deal. You get to year 3. Let's just say things aren't going your way. You still have 3 more years left to where any team by that time can trade for you. Now, who knows what the Mets farm is going to be in 3 years, if that does happen. But you can always get pieces back. This is still Pete Alonso that we're talking.
See, but my problem, Grizz, and I tell this to everybody I talk baseball with, when you trade a superstar for prospects are exactly what they are. Prospects. Yeah. You never know what you're going to get, because you get a lot of these guys, especially because I'm heavy into the sports card collecting market, but you get a lot of these guys who are tearing up rookie ball and A and AA and some even AAA. And then they get called up to the majors, and all of a sudden everybody was like, oh, they're wrong. What did they see in this kid? You know, like a perfect example of a Met that didn't pan out was Dom Smith. Dom Smith was a first-round pick for us in 2012. And the guy, outside of the COVID-shortened season, the guy never hit more than 244 in a year. So, you know, and then they were calling, his nickname was the medium hurt, because they thought he was going to be the next Frank Thomas. And that comparison didn't pan out. I'm surprised the guy's even still in the league, to be honest with you. So, yeah, prospects are exactly what they are. When you trade somebody like a Pete Alonso, and we've even seen it with guys like Manny Machado when he got traded from Baltimore to the Dodgers in 2018. You get guys, you give up a superstar or a big or an important player in your team, and you get a whole farm for some of these guys, 5-6 prospects sometimes. And as we've seen in certain deals, you get 6 prospects and not a single one of them pans out. So now you're really at a loss. And the loss hurts more because you don't expect the prospects to come play for a couple of years. You gave up a guy who's producing now, and even 4 or 5 years after you trade him, you still haven't won the deal because the kids that you got back in return haven't done anything. Or fizzled out in AA or fizzled out in AAA.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting though when you look at the possible free agents next year. I mean, you've got you assume that the Braves are going to vest their club option on Ozuna, so I don't think he's going to hit the market. But you got a guy like Anthony Santander in Baltimore who's going to be a free agent. You've got Juan Soto, obviously, unless something happens this year. And when you're talking infielders, I mean, I'm sure the Mets don't want anything to do with Rhys Hoskins, but Goldschmidt and Christian Walker are both free agent first basemen that could help to kind of quell the emptiness if a Pete Alonso were to go. And again, if you make a big trade and you somehow David Stern somehow convinces the Angels to give up on Mike Trout and finally get rid of him, or somehow Juan Soto leaves one New York market for another New York market. My issue is, and this again, I go back to what I said to people a lot of times privately during the Aaron Judge situation as a free agent. My issue is, and with Aaron Judge, especially with injury, it's like, what is he going to be available to play for the length of that contract, or are we going to be screwed with a guy who's going to have to end up becoming a first baseman or a DH, considering that we already have guys like Stanton and all that. With my issue is, My big issue with Pete Alonso, and again, this goes back to what we talked about to start the show. He just doesn't walk enough for me.
His plate discipline is very. His plate discipline
Strikes
is
out
poor.
way too much. Strikes out way too much from my number. And again, I grew up watching power hitters like Barry Bonds, like Giambi, hell, like a Mike Piazza, who had incredible plate discipline, and they would take walks and they would get on base. And yeah, they struck out, and yeah, they swung at bad pitches. But you know what? Their plate discipline, their eye at the plate was incredible. And you had these guys averaging 80, 90, 100 walks a year. In fact, you now have guys like Alonso. I think his highest walk total has been like 60-something in a year.
But that just
which
goes
to
with
me
the
is
way
a problem.
that just goes with the way the game is played nowadays. When I was a kid in the 90s, guys struck out, they were embarrassed. There was one season that Tony Gwynn only struck out 32 times the entire year. And now you get guys who strike out 32 times in 2 weeks. So it's just the culture of baseball today, which is sad that strikeouts are more common and people don't really care as much. But
it's a lot. Before we wrap up here, Grizz, anything you are keeping your eye on in the upcoming 2 weeks before we come back on the air with episode 6? Anything we should be keeping our eye on in the next 2 weeks?
Let's. You know what? I'm gonna be on Kansas City watch now. That they really have. This episode has proved that I need to keep my eye on them because that race is going to be tight in that Central. I'm really interested to see how that Central is going to play out in the next 2 weeks by the time we come back. So definitely the Central. As far as National League goes, I think the big question is Atlanta. Do they fall off? Does somebody else take that second place spot? Who knows? And I really don't see anything else going on so far. I know the Yankees have a big series coming up against.
We're about to hit hell.
Yeah, we have a rough June coming up. So
yes, at San Francisco starting tomorrow. Then we come home for a series against Minnesota and the Dodgers, and then on the road against, as you said, Kansas City, Boston, home for Baltimore, Atlanta, and then we have the first half of the Subway Series at Citi Field. Which almost said Shea Stadium.
Which we didn't expect Kansas City to be a threat at this point of the season, but here we are. So, keep my eye on that. Keep my eye on the American League Central and the National League East. Those are my two divisions that I'm keeping my close eye on. So we'll go with that.
Alphonse, what do you got over the next 2 weeks?
See what happens. Yeah.
This weekend, Darryl Strawberry is getting number 18 retired by the Mets. One thing I got to give Steve Cohen, he may be an incompetent owner, but he has. Why do you buy a baseball team and not know what to do? But one thing I respect about the man, he does give the legends their due because he's retired 6 numbers, including a manager, in his 3 seasons of ownership. And I never thought Willie Mays was going to get his number 24 retired by the Mets, but good for you, Mr. Cohen. But Darryl Strawberry, who should have had his number retired a long, long time ago by the Mets, he's getting his number retired on Saturday and getting inducted into the Mets Hall of Fame. And I'll be watching the AL East because Baltimore and the Yankees have always entertained me these last couple of years, and it'll be interesting to see who's going to pull ahead or catch up. So it's only a game and a half lead, and like I said, I like there's a couple of guys I like on both teams. Judge is starting to heat up, so Judge and Mr. Soto Pacheco are a very interesting tandem. Volpe's playing great. So I just want, like you said, you guys have the rough schedule. So after June, I'm interested to see who's going to be in first. But you can't sleep on the Orioles either because Santander and Rutschman both bat switch and they've both been tearing the cover off the baseball. So remains to be seen.
Incredible.
That AL Central, by the way, also going to keep an eye on that because right now that's anybody's division between the Twins, the Guardians, and the Royals. Somebody's bound to fall off.
June is a hell month for our New York Yankees. We still don't know who's lined up to start next Friday opposite Yamamoto. But we've got Cortez in the second game on Saturday, which you can catch on Fox. And then the Sunday night baseball game on ESPN on June 9th will be Glasnow versus Gill. So that's going to be a really good one. Speaking of Atlanta, they might be able to limp along here. Looking at this schedule, they have 3 tough series kind of like interspersed. They got a 3-game set against Oakland coming up this weekend. Then they go 2 games against Boston, which Boston kind of plays tough this year. 4 games against Washington. That could be an interesting one, but I don't think it's too tough. 3 games at Baltimore. And then you get a little bit of a rest with Tampa Bay and Detroit. And then you go to come and play the Yankees. And then again, a little bit of a rest with St. Louis, the White Sox, Pittsburgh. Very interested to see what the Braves do in July. Series against San Francisco, Philly, and Arizona back to back to back. But yeah, I really want to see Yamamoto against the Yankees. I am looking forward to next Friday, June 7th, Yamamoto against the Yankees. That's going to be the very interesting one because again, we were in the running for Yamamoto, and it didn't happen. And Judge has been getting hot. Volpe's been getting hot. The offense is looking good. It's great to have DJ LeMahieu back. Really good to have him back.
Bold prediction. You guys are going to smack Yamamoto around.
Well, I mean, considering how he's been pitching recently. But we'll be back on Thursday, June the 13th, for episode 6 of the Dog Days of Baseball podcast. As always, for the Territorian, Alphonse Stevens, the self-made man, Grizz, I am the voice of a generation. Pete Rosado. Thanks to the Yerrr Sports Show Network and all of our partners and friends across all the different podcasts on all the different networks that we're affiliated with. Keep up with all of them. Everybody have a great 2 weeks. We'll see you on June 13th.